Hello, my name is Gabriel Meissner, and you are watching RPTV News. On May 2nd, 2024, the Planning Committee made significant strides in advancing the strategic direction of the SDP Stakeholders Table. Facilitated by Ismail Mohammed, the session focused on debriefing the April 25th meeting, discussing future agenda items, and outlining plans for upcoming strategic planning sessions. The committee's efforts aim to enhance stakeholder engagement and ensure effective decision-making processes. Now let's get to the meeting.
So a quick review of today's agenda. We have committee feedback and debrief. We'll be using the Rose, Thorn, and Bud method. Rose is something that you thought went well. Thorn is something that you thought didn't go well. Bud is something that you thought was a good idea, but could use improvement. And then we have the SDP Stakeholders Table co-chairs remarks and accountability. We have April 25th meeting follow-up, which are items that were discussed at the meeting, and now what we're going to do with those discussions and decision-making pieces. And then finally, we have strategic planning. We have the 3 dates over here, May 9th, May 26th, June 6th, as well as their appropriate heading, so direction and vision, working groups, process and structure. I'm hoping that today we can decide or determine what each of those entail, so the members have more insights on each of those meetings. And as a comment, Deanie had sent an email to request to join these strategic planning meetings. She's aware of these dates, and she's aware of, she has a Zoom link for these dates as well. But if any additional meetings come out of this and anything else comes out of this, she has asked that she be contacted to join. Okay. Do members feel like anything is missing or any changes I need to make to this agenda? Not sure if I. Hey, Rashida.
I'll be listening mostly.
Got it. Is there anything missing from this agenda, or do members feel like anything's missing? I don't see any hands up. I don't see anything in the chat. Okay. Next item over here, facilitator. I am still working on the facilitators list. I will be sending out emails to people who I think would be good facilitators or who I feel like I could tap to facilitate. Again, just going back to our last point over here, developing facilitation approaches that increase the capacity of all stakeholders to engage in discussion and decision-making. So we want to help people gain the facilitator knowledge and skills, kind of like how I have attending these meetings. So I'll be doing that. Upcoming SDP events and meetings, let's take a look at the calendar. So next week, we have agenda planning May 7th at 3:30 as usual. We have a Hello Neighbor app monthly meeting at 5:30 on May 8th. And then on May 9th, we have evaluations and benchmarks at 1:30 p.m. And we have planning committee at 5 p.m. next week. Next week will be our first strategic planning meeting. And everyone's requested to join all these meetings. So that's next week. We have 1 second, Michael. I'm just fine. Go ahead.
Just to make sure that I've already told some people they can come in person. So is somebody making sure that, I assume it has to be hybrid. So is somebody making sure that that will take place?
So Michael, to my knowledge, we haven't decided on whether those meetings will be in person or not yet. I guess that's something we can talk about when we get to strategic planning this week. But based on the
Well, it had been
meetings,
previously mentioned, and there seemed to be support for it. So I hope we don't change our minds now. So let's get to that discussion. Okay, fine.
I don't support personal meetings. So just for the record.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah Jane. Michael, just to respond quickly to you.
Well, I mean,
it has been mentioned.
Yeah, I would hope that it's hybrid, so it shouldn't affect anybody badly, I don't think. Anybody who wanted to be doing it that way would still be able to, but it's really going to be better if it's in person.
Okay, thank you for your recommendation. Again, for the record, it has been mentioned. People have suggested that we have in person, but nothing has been landed on. So I'm hoping when we get to that item today, I will add it in as a sub point to today's agenda, because you're right, that's something we should definitely talk about. But there is nothing concrete as of yet. Okay. Any updates on city staff and councillor meetings? I would actually ask that we remove the councillor meeting updates, since no one in the planning committee that I'm aware of has formal meetings on behalf of the SDP with the councillor. We haven't continued trying, and there hasn't been anyone requesting to meet. So I would like to ask the group over here if we're okay if I remove these councillor meeting updates from the standing agenda items.
Yes.
Thank you. Is there anyone who disagrees with that?
I
Nope.
do.
You disagree with that, Sarah Jane?
Yes, I do. I think we should keep asking and keep on it and not give up.
So Sarah Jane, we haven't been trying to reach them. We left it with the stakeholders table co-chairs. I think when Leah was here, she was taking that on. She was spearheading that. But now that Leah has stepped back, no one has taken that responsibility. So basically there's no updates to be provided until a meeting or something has come up.
Well, I met
Hello?
Gary. I'm talking, Michael. Listen, please.
He was talking.
I'm
Trying to get
talking now. I respond. I met Gary at the Kiwanis, and he said he was coming back.
But Greg,
So-
be clear on 1 second, Michael, before you speak. We have Inez's hand up afterwards. So it'll be Inez, then you.
Yeah, but you answer
Um,
everybody, and I actually have an answer.
Oh, Jesus.
Michael, I am facilitating today, and I want to stick to
Yeah,
the
but
rules.
facilitating doesn't mean you have to answer everything.
It
We
does.
can talk about that afterwards, Michael. Okay, so I hear you, Sarah Jane. Inez, I'll let you speak, and then we'll have Michael. Inez, go ahead.
Okay, so regarding about the city, there's only two, Leah is away and Marlene stepping down, so there's only two co-chairs. And I think we need all the co-chairs in order to meet with the city. That's my opinion. As a co-chair, I think we all need to come together and have those conversations. It cannot be two-person going, and then it's gonna be backlashing on us, right? So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Just writing that down, city councilor. Michael, your turn, go ahead.
So yeah, it would have been helpful if you let me speak when I had some information, because this discussion so far has been based on a false premise, and I could have corrected that, and therefore several of the comments would have been able to be based on correct information. So the correct information is that the councillor meeting was not assigned to the co-chairs. The staff meeting was assigned to the co-chairs. The councillor meeting was assigned to 3 people,
Yes.
and it wasn't the co-chairs. It was 2 co-chairs and myself.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole discussion about whether the co-chairs were following up on this and whether Greg was going to follow up, he was not on the councillor
Sorry, Gail, I'm
meeting.
just going to mute
Yes,
you so
it is.
Michael can speak.
And
So that's
Oh, Michael, we could still hear you. I just muted
so
the
anyways,
other resident. Go ahead.
I'm willing to take it off the agenda if nobody's going to do anything about it. Like the other person who was involved, and it wasn't because she was a co-chair, it was because of the list of people who were chosen for this happened to include some co-chairs, and it was Leah. I think most of what happened is we left it to her. So I agree that at this point we can take it off, and if we wanted to keep trying, then that should be like not an update because there's nothing to update, but a new agenda item to come up with a new structure by which to approach the councillor. or like who's going to do it or what. Like we'd have to put it back on the planning committee. So I think it can go in the parking lot rather than the updates is what I'm saying. And if we want to bring it back, it would have to be a discussion as to how we're going to do it. Because right now, if we just leave it to the assumption that it's Leah, it's probably not going to happen. So we'd have to discuss how to reactivate that if we wanted to.
Thank you, Michael, for the modified proposal. I still have Inez's hand up and Sarah Jane then Walid. Inez, is that an old hand?
Sorry, that's an old hand.
Sarah Jane?
Not an old hand. I think that we should leave it exactly as it is. We were going to say we're going to in touch with the counselor and city staff both. Neither of them have come into our planning committee meeting. Well, Richard did briefly to just say what he wanted to say, and I'm glad that he's accepted our money, but I don't see the reason for putting it in parking lot and having to bring it back. That's just my opinion. Humble opinion. I'll lower my hand.
So since I would like to withdraw my proposal. I think we should just keep it there, and as things come up, we just share it over here. I have Walid's hand up and Adonis's hand up, or not anymore. Walid, would you like to speak on that?
So much for revising your proposal, Sean. I think it should be a standing item. I don't think we should change it. We have two co-chairs, but just note that there could be reasons why we included with city staff or the council's office on behalf of the SCC. So I don't want for that opportunity for an update to the planning committee to be removed.
I can't hear you either. Are you speaking?
So I will try to, Walid, let me rephrase what you said and you just let me know if it was correct or not. So you're saying there's no reason to remove it as a standing agenda item because we should still continue to get in touch with these individuals and share updates. Okay.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I would like to say that this item, Michael, did you have any final thoughts before we move on to?
Well, the only thing I'd add is if we do want to continue it, then we should put it not just on the updates, but put it on the actual agenda for one of the upcoming meetings, because unless we discuss how to do it, it's just going to stay an update forever.
Okay, I will note that down. Okay, thank you. So I think I kind of poked the bear, but okay, so we'll keep that here. They'll remain on the agenda as a standing agenda item, and Michael proposes that we bring it back as an actual agenda item so we could re-strategize. And I'm in favor of that. I will add that to the parking lot, and at the agenda planning meetings, we will determine which agenda that comes into. On to the next item. So we have 20 minutes for the next agenda item. We have how many people? I see we have 14 plus one recorder. So we have 13 people in attendance, to my understanding. And 13, so let's say about 2 minutes a person. So for this agenda item, we're looking for feedback, somewhat of a debrief. April 25th Stakeholders Table meeting. We wanted to share Rose, Thorn, and Bud. So if we can each take turns, share one item we thought that was done really well, share one item that we thought didn't go so well, and one item that we think was a good idea, but could be improved on. Sarah Jane, I see your hand up first, so we'll start with you.
Okay, I didn't attend the meeting because I was upstairs childminding, which was chaos, and the kids there were not safe. I got in touch with who was Joel's Stella, is that her name, Joel?
Correct.
And she phoned the mother of one person that had hit his head and kept looking in the mirror and crying. And I thought that he should be taken to get an x-ray, a head injury. She said that she only asked the mother to take him to a doctor, and the mother didn't want to take him to a doctor. In any case, the job was done, that she was notified that he needed some kind of attention, whether he was bleeding or not. A head injury should always be x-rayed, I know. And then as far as the child minding was concerned, it did not go well. I think I should write up some recommendations. I know that the other two women agree with me. It can't be in that room. Everybody floods into that room. None of the three of us could distinguish who were our kids and who were the kids that were some were just being left there without supervision. There is a door outside on the top of a long flight of stairs that the kids were going out of. And so somebody needed to be watching that. People were running and running up and down. There was a lot of people. There were 2 accidents of people hit. I had the smaller kids because I can't get up and down fast and I can't chase. So I was playing with the smaller kids mostly.
Sarah Jane, you have 30 seconds left. Do you have anything with regards to what went well or what you think needs to be improved?
Well, I think we need more childminders. I think we need to be in a smaller room. And I love the idea. I mean, I wouldn't give up the idea for anything, but I had 2 little girls come up with lollipops in their mouth. And I didn't think, I said, where did you get them? They can't be up there with lollipops in their mouth. It could have gone right into the back of their throat with the kids running around. All right, I rest my case.
Thank you, Sarah Jane. So Sarah Jane only shares Thorn. Got it. Who would like to go next? Sarah Jane, would you like to tap anyone to go next? Gail, go ahead. After Gail, I would ask you to ask someone to go next after you. Go ahead.
Yeah, or round robin, if somebody doesn't have something, they don't have something. Yeah, so a couple things. I was online. So my challenge here was accessibility. Sorry, I think you said Bud Rose-Thorn. So is it Bud Rose-Thorn? Bud? I don't know. What is Bud?
Bud is a good idea, but maybe poorly executed or needs improvement.
Rose. Oh, yeah, it seemed that there was decent attendance in terms of people being there. Other rows is just your coordination effort is Ismail. Really, really good, right? Second time I think you're doing this. Really, really good. And then I'm talking about the planning before and then the execution, right? So really, really good. I don't know who's your boss, if that guy Joel is your boss, but he should know that that was tremendous work. So good on you, friend. And that obviously helped with execution on the day of. Thorn, what could be improved? Yeah, so accessibility, right? We can't be online and then say, oh, can you come in person, right? We also, when we first, well, when I would say at least 3-5 years ago, when we were doing this, right, it was in person. Actually, I don't even think about online option was available. But also we have to know that accessibility is not only, oh, I'm not technology savvy, but I can't hear, I'm not being asked, I'm raising my hand and can't, and no one is asking me to speak. Incorrect information is therefore being recorded. One of those pieces of incorrect information was the motion that was passed. It was said that there was only one person who didn't agree. That is not true. There were others in the chat as well who did not agree. So there was not an opportunity for us to speak. And if we're talking community engagement, is it only certain people that we want to speak, or is it all of us? So accessibility definitely was not there. My other challenge, and I've raised this before, was the way the costs apply to vendors. You cannot go anywhere in this city and get food for that price. So why would we do it to these vendors? Because they are not as maybe entrepreneur savvy, because no business is going to say, yeah, I'll take that, right? It just is not happening. So that's something we have to be mindful of, and we cannot say, it's the city. I think if we go and we lay the right case, which is people are getting $12, $8, $13 for a plate of food, do you believe, city, that that is reasonable? I don't think anybody's the city is going to say that it is reasonable. And if we want to advocate, then maybe we don't offer food. So when residents ask why, we can say, well, we cannot afford $13 per plate. There's nobody that's going to, and maybe that would help to bring about some change. Bud, what can we keep doing? Oh, we just need you, really. That's it. Just keep you to help us get aligned. It's great that you now have a little bit of a roadmap, so we should keep that roadmap going. That's it.
Thank you. And I would like to add, it was thanks to members of the planning committee who made that meeting possible. And I'd especially like to give a shout out to the focus team who helped put everything together. They were even there early to, and see, now I guess I'm sharing my roles. But they were there early to set up the room and everything, but I'll stop at that. Is there anyone else who would like to share their Rose, Thorn, and Bud?
Hello.
Michael, yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I think people got a good sense of participation and had lots of opportunities. But the questions were sort of modified and kind of became yes and no questions rather than what do you think about this type questions. So in the end, we didn't get a lot of useful information that we can really work with. We got a few kind of yeses and nos and a bunch of new ideas, but we didn't get really comments on the existing ideas, on the existing activities of the working group so much. At least I only got one of the sheets, so somebody should have the other three. I hope that those get written up in the next day or two because we're going to have to start being ready with that material. But I got the one from the economic committee and a working group, and they, like I say, there were a list of new ideas, and not all of them completely new, but things people wanted to be done. But there wasn't a lot of evaluation or one of the questions that I had wished we'd asked, but it didn't end up in the final version was, is this effective? So we didn't get that information on each of the existing projects. We just got a kind of a yes or no to is it successful? And successful and effective are not the same thing. So I think we could have had questions that elicited a better type of useful, more usable information. Yeah, so that's the main thing.
Thank you, Michael. So two things. Michael, do you have the EED chart paper then?
Yes, I've written it up, and I believe the file has been sent to you, which is the update. So you'll have to go to that section in it that has the charts. The latest version you have has the charts in there, but the only chart that is complete is that one because the other, somebody else has the other three sheets.
Okay. I don't want to take too much time into that. I have the remaining sheets. I was tasked with collecting, so I was wondering, I was panicking that night because I couldn't find EED. So I thought all that work went to waste. I wasn't aware that you took it.
Yeah, no, I'd already told you a few days ago that I had one of the sheets.
Right, but I'm talking the night of the meeting. I was panicking because the animators were helping me put everything back. They were instructed to collect the sheets and they were helping me do that. And they couldn't find it. And we were worried that it was tossed in the garbage by other people who were helping clean. So I wish you had told me the night of, but I'm glad that you have it and I can get it from you. So thank you. And I did get the update, so I'll go through it and I'll find the responses there. Thank you. Would anyone else like to share their feedback with the Rose-Thorn-Bud concepts? Adonis, go ahead.
Yeah, I thought that that the food was good. Thank you. For what our budget was, I thought that setup went well. I'm not clear for that, so those are my roles. But I thought we had a good turnout, but that could be improved. In terms of, I thought the exercise, sorry. I
Sorry,
thought
I'm just gonna mute you one sec. Go ahead, Adonis.
I thought the exercise we did was the interactive exercise was good as well. I think that to Michael's point, there were a lot of to me a lot of new members there, our first timers, and this gave them an understanding of what we did. It's hard for them for people to understand the committee structure and understand the activities if they are not aware of it. So I think it was a great exercise for helping people to be aware of all the activities that each of the working groups do. And Matt could follow up with a follow-up activity, as we could see. In terms of thorns, I would say the thorn was, I felt the controversy or the disunity. I would say the disunity among the leadership team. That I felt that that there was different information that people were giving members of the committee, members of the stakeholders table, and confusing people. And even when real information was presented, there was still our information from the city was presented. There was still disunity among the leadership. So, and that's, I felt, was disappointing to see. I think that we should have been unified going into it, especially if we had talked about made the decision in the planning committee, that we should have been more unified going into it and being able to give people the correct information. So that is the thorn that I saw. Thanks.
Thank you, Adonis. And Sarah Jane, I saw your note in the chat. I'm just quickly writing that down.
No, I put my hand down this. Thanks.
Hey, Sarah Jane. Okay, I'm checking the chat. I don't see anyone else's hand up. Bardosa, please go ahead.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to say, Ismail and everybody else who organized the event, you guys did a great job. Things that need to be improved. What I have seen during decision making or passing motion, the resident who was sitting next to me was asking me questions. They were like, what we passing? What is this? They wasn't aware of it because honestly, they don't come on SDP stakeholder meetings. They don't know what's going on. I just felt like people are, the stakeholder is calling for an event where people has lack of information. So I feel like maybe we should have an event that we give all the information before we pass motions or etc. And the other thing I want to also add that to it is there's a lot of residents, especially women, who did a child minding course, a program for about 12 weeks or 14 weeks. And some of them need a hours for their placement. Was asking me if in the future if they can be called so they can get their hours done, and also when it comes to and those who qualified, finished the program would like to get some job out of it, the child minding, and they should be the first people who should be called. I will get their names and pass it to Ismail because they felt like outside of Regent Parkers, people outside of the Regent Park are being called and not them, and they just feel really frustrated. So I just want to pass that, and hopefully I'll get their names and I'll pass it to you, Ismail.
Sounds good. Thank you. Last call. If there's anyone else who wants to comment. Waleed, yes.
I can go.
Oh, Murshid, I'll have you go after Waleed, okay? Waleed raise his hand.
Sure.
Thank you. Waleed?
Murshida go first. I don't mind going next.
Okay. Murshida?
I can go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I think the meeting, the amount of people came in, it's pretty good. And especially I saw a lot of new folks who came in. That's why they probably don't know the information. I'm guessing because I seen a lot of people that was new, who's trying to get the information. So I guess I gave a fair amount of information for them to be part of that involvement. And I saw a lot of market folks as well. I think that's a pro, I would say. But when it comes to con, I'm saying like, Hello Neighbor app, it wasn't working at all and it was not even scanning. And I was kind of disappointed, even though the person who did the promotion and it's like, it's not working. Hopefully they get a handle over it. And they were also disappointed with the tech library, which is not working, which is not activated at the moment. And they were asking a lot of questions. When is it going to run? When is it going to think? Because like a lot of folks been having advantage of that. And then they wanted to come back. So those are the information I got. rptv, a lot of people who watch it, maybe one person, I would say out of 15 person that who didn't see that rptv, even they saw like a cache of flavors flyers as well. When it comes to the child minding, I'd say, because the thing is, when it comes to the kids are not their kids, obviously they like to run around and go crazy. The space that we give is not fair. We have to book a room so that way the childminder can lock the room, the kids doesn't go outside. So we just have to kind of look into their safety issue when it comes to that. Let's book a room next time instead of just the open space, right? There's only 2 childminder, and how many kids we have, they can only do certain things. But if it's a closed door, somebody can be at the door, somebody can be on the other side in order to do the work even more in a safer way. Let's just take that accountable with us as well, I'm thinking. But otherwise, they do got a little bit of confusion with the decision-making process because some people didn't understand what was happening. And we could have done a bit more explanation on that, I would say. But they thought it was a very informal, formal, like an informative meeting. So that's my pros, cons, and all the things there.
Thank you. Waleed, would you still like to speak?
Yes, thank you, my friend. Ishmael, can you hear me?
It is slightly muffled, but go ahead.
Okay. I'm gonna try
Oh, now we lost all audio.
the audio.
Hang on a sec.
Can you hear me now or no?
I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. So I think it was a successful meeting. Since we did what we planned. The one thing that I hope we make sure is a standard is allow questions from those online. I did bring a speaker to just make sure that folks online can be able to be heard in the meeting. But we didn't take any questions from those on Zoom. So I think that limited their participation. There was no one monitoring. There was no one monitoring the chat on Zoom as well. So for online participants, and I think that's important. We need to have a facilitator support us with questions or comments from those online, because I was facilitating the meeting. I was hoping to get feedback. the food was good. I really enjoyed it. So thanks to the caterers for the delicious food. The setup was amazing. The one thorn, I think, was that there was confusion caused by comments made at the meeting related, because people were asking me after the meeting, what is this corruption? What's going on? And I think that created a lot of what is it called? Not just confusion, but people like really concerned. There was some concern after the meeting, after those remarks were made. But the good thing is people did know what they were voting on because we repeated it several times when we made a decision. I wish the animators were given the responsibility to take notes when we're doing the strategic discussion. I think that would have been helpful if they were oriented on what their tasks are before strategic discussions happen. Because I helped facilitate the community building discussion, and there was some really good, not just questions, but comments made that I wish were documented. And I tried. I wrote down as much as I could, but for someone to have that specific role will have been much more beneficial to get all that input from residents. The other thing that I want to say about the meeting is, I think we need to figure ways to make it more engaging. I didn't like the fact we didn't have raffles, or I don't think they'll give it away at the table. So someone please let me know if that happened at the table, but I thought that was a part of the plan. But I think the questions that engage new members, new residents about what the SDP is, what's its goal, what are the committees and working groups. I think that's ongoing education work that we need to incorporate in our outreach. So I'll leave it at that. Those are the sort of like very, very high level observations I made at the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Waleed. So I will quickly repeat what Waleed shared for those of us who couldn't hear. And Waleed, feel free to correct me if I got it wrong. Waleed was saying for online participants, no one was monitoring, and that it was important that we should have had someone to monitor the chats and make sure that their voices are heard, so that they can share their opinions as well. He said that food was good, and he thanked the caterers. He also said that the setup was amazing. And the thorn was that comments made, I heard something about corruption, which left attendees confused and concerned. And he also wishes that animators were given responsibilities to note take during the activity. So during the actual meeting, I did have an animator taking notes. I am trying to get a hold of that animator because I did not receive the notes yet. I did instruct her to email me, and she said she would at the end of the meeting, but I didn't get that. I've also spoken to tech library, and fortunately he didn't delete the document that the note was created on. So Abdurrahman will be sending the notes as a favor to the SDP. So he's going into Daniel Spectrum today to find those notes and send that to me so I can share it. Waleed also says that we should have more engaging activities such as raffles, and that we engage new members to let people know what the SDP is, what the goals are, and what the working groups are. So thank you, everyone, for sharing your feedback. I will quickly share a couple things about my Rose, Thorn, and Bud, and I'll do a more detailed debrief afterwards. My Rose was everyone working together. Everyone, co-chairs, planning committee members. We had Sarah Jane helping out with child minding. I had YSM staff come and support as well. And so I would like to thank everyone for the support and for the cooperation. And my Bud is, I'll get into my thorn and my bud next week. I'll leave it at that. Okay, next item. Ooh, I see something in the chat. What do we have? Yep. Next item. So we have 30 minutes for this item. We have SDP Stakeholders Table, co-chairs, remarks and accountability. And as subpoints, we have social media, and overall accountability. So just some background information, and I would love if anyone would like to step in, please do. But just some background information. So there has been concerns raised about co-chairs and their accountability to what standard they're held. Like it's not really, maybe it's not so clear, and we're hoping to clarify that. And also speaking on, speaking on certain topics with saying that we're speaking on behalf of the SDP, saying that we're speaking on behalf of any other group that we're a part of. And residents have brought that concern forward and asked that we talk about it today. I would like to turn to the group. Hopefully the people that requested it are here today, and if they can speak on that. Adonis, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess on accountability, and I'm really confused about this. One of the co-chairs at the meeting and one of our members raised 2 points that I felt should have been addressed. The first point was a member who was a former co-chair, and it's not important to name names at this point, but I wanted to make sure that there is a correction here, because the SDP made a decision that we would collaborate with the refresh. Yes, we would do our own strategic planning, but our main point was that we were collaborating with the refresh. So when a member who is a former chair stands up and says, that this was forced upon us, I have a issue with that. I also have an issue with one of our co-chairs in terms of saying essentially that there was corruption at the committees at the SDP, and that the SDP is not accountable to funds. And I think we need to be clear about that. Like, that's unfair. I felt that was an unfair statement. And even if people have their own personal opinions, as a SDP co-chair, that those things should not be, unless you have spoke and you're speaking on behalf of the SDP, that co-chairs should not be putting their own personal opinions in front of the public when their role is to be a co-chair and leader of the SDP. And then the third point goes to, again, a co-chair, to putting out social media posts related to, again, I understand that this may be their own personal opinion, but putting out remarks related to a recent family tragedy and linking that with the city's funding. So those are the 3 points. And I'm only raising this in terms of accountability, is that we got to hold each other accountable. And I don't feel that all 3 members have been accountable to the committees that to the SDP that they serve on. And by that, yes, they may have personal opinions, but when you publicly put something out there, that you are representing the SDP and that you should be accountable for your remarks to the SDP. So I hope those members would offer apologies to the SDP. Yeah, and that's my opening remarks on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Miguel, I see your hand up.
All right, you can put me on the speakers list.
Okay, Michael. Gail, and then Michael. Gail, you're muted.
Can you let Michael go and then I'll come back? Sorry.
Okay, Michael.
Okay, so I think we're getting into a sort of situation where we're going with this co-chair idea, and then certain things follow from it. I'd rather stay a whole way from that idea. So I'd rather not make the assumption that co-chairs are speaking for the SDP. Personally, I'd rather just not have co-chairs. But if we have people who are co-chairs, I don't think they should be considered to have any responsibility. I don't think we should operate on the model of organizations have to have leadership and somebody at the top. So I would take a totally different approach here and sort of move away from co-chairs altogether if I could. I don't think I'm going to convince people of that. But at least let's not try to operate within that model. If we have to have co-chairs, let's make a totally different model for it. So obviously it's legitimate to question or criticize why, people were saying certain things, especially when they were, in a certain position. Yes, but I just don't think accountability is a part of the solution. I think the solution is to change the framework so that it's not a matter of accountability, and it's not a role that has any particular power that we have to even be concerned about accountability. So I would just take a totally different approach to, like, instead of going past the co-chair thing and then moving on to accountability, I would move backwards and say, how can we reduce the co-chairs so much and move away from it in the other direction? So it's just a different direction to go to resolve these issues. Now, as far as the specific issues and things that came up, obviously, like anything else, I would have an opinion on them. And it's not like totally one way or the other. Like, for instance, I do think we were forced into this situation, but I also think it would be nice to cooperate with the city, but they're not providing any updates to us. They want to hold everything back until the end. So we're kind of in a box here. I'm not saying don't cooperate with the city. I'm just waiting for that opportunity, and I don't think it's coming.
Thank you, Michael. I'm just quickly taking notes. I would like to say one thing in response, and then I'll continue with the speakers list. I do think that, so this suggestion that you have, Michael, of having, a different framework, I think that's something that needs to be addressed afterwards. But I think currently, as residents and other people in the surrounding neighborhood that are familiar with the social development plan, I think it's fair to say that they would take co-chairs as actual leaders and not just some figures or administrators or something of that sort. And based on that, I think that's where the recommendations were coming from. And second point that I wanted to make, I think, and I lost it. Yeah. Okay, I'll come back to that afterwards. I'll put myself on the speakers list after Kevin. So we have Gail, then Joel, and then Kevin. Gail, go ahead. Gail, you're muted.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, so my comments here on this piece is if we are publicly representing, so yeah, my concern is that we have messaging that goes out, whether it's through Twitter, because we do have a tweet, and this is where maybe for me it's now we need to look at how we as community leaders, because those are the words we use for ourselves, are operating, right? We may hate co-chairship and, oh, you don't want no leaders, but at the end of the day, this organization, this community, this North America, this is kind of the governance style we know, we've all become accustomed to, right? In government and everything we do, this is kind of the government style. And so, if someone speaks on behalf of an organization, every time they speak, of course, everyone says, oh yeah, that person is the leader of this organization. That's their thought process with that. And whether you do something that is, and so when you speak in public, and specifically this tweet that says, the shooting that happened in our community is as a result of the SDP refresh, right? That is unconscionable. You're thinking about the family, thinking about that's not true, thinking about other unfortunate gun violences that have happened when there wasn't a refresh. No. So, so whether it's a interview we do, a tweet, an article, a whatever, that communication, especially where you are in that leadership role, you do have to recognize that you are in that position, and yeah, that people are thinking, oh, you're leading the organization. That's the structure of what we know as governance. So we're going to gravitate towards that. That's where our brain is going to go. And I would agree with maybe Adonis's comments that, we should be mindful of those positions if we want to find another way, but I don't know what the other way is. But if we find another way, that kind of solves for some of these things, great. But again, you who are leaders, or you're the co-chairs of the SDP, you are the co-chairs of the SDP, and you know that people are listening to you. So why do that? Why not tell them things that can uplift? I think there was a comment about people in the audience didn't even know what was going on. Well, that's a two-way street too, because you, the resident, you got something in email, you want to read it or not, right? And if that's not the way for you to absorb that information, we need to find better ways to help people absorb the information. So, if I'm fairly tech savvy and I'm struggling to hear what's happening on a call, what about somebody who's like, well, I'm just going to give up on this. I'm not bothering because I don't know what's going on. But for me, I think we all have to look at ourselves and say, should I really say those things? I get that I'm upset. I get that things aren't going the greatest with who it is, TCC, the city, whoever, but really, what message does that send to my community, to my neighbors, right? It cannot send the message, I'm seen as the big dog now. It has to send the message, is this dividing community or bringing us together? But to whom much is given, much is expected. There's that too. Like it's not a vacuum. There's so many pieces to this, and so many impacts. That's my 2 cents.
It's more than 40 seconds.
Sarah Jane.
Yeah, thank you. I'm taking my time. I'm reclaiming my time there, Sarah Jane. I'm reclaiming my time. Give me that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was trying to message you, Ismail, and I didn't. Are you still timing?
No, so the timing, I was going to say the timing was only for the committee feedback and debrief, because I wanted to give all the members a chance to speak.
Okay.
But not so much for this. And I would like to ask that before we speak, we do raise our hands. I do see some hands up. So I'll ask Joel to speak and then Kevin. Joel?
So I unfortunately wasn't able to attend the stakeholders meeting, so I can't comment on things that were said at the meeting. But I do fully support the idea of holding each other accountable. I think that's a really important principle. And so echoing Gail's words and Adonis's, and I think we are working with this structure that we have, and so we need to do what we can with it. And there's a lot of good about it, I think. And we can't sort of have the structure, half of it, and then sort of try not to have it as much as possible. I do think that in terms of shared leadership and shared responsibility, I think there's a lot we could do in that direction. So I do think we have co-chairs of the stakeholders table as a whole. We have co-chairs of the working groups. All those leadership roles can be identified, and there are leadership roles, and there can be perhaps more expectations for anybody in those roles. But I also think we should have expectations of each of us, at least those who are regular attendees of the planning committee, to support the SDP and to relate with the stakeholders that we relate with within certain kinds of guidelines as much as possible. And I think so when we get to the mechanics of how we do this accountability, I think that might be included. So I would propose a special focus on the co-chairs of the stakeholders table as a whole, second, leads of committees and working groups, and third, planning committee as a whole. And I would suggest that the mechanisms are different too. So maybe something like a media policy might be appropriate out of this conversation, or in terms of making statements in meetings that are of concern. If that is something that's shared by the group, that concern, then there might be a different kind of accountability mechanism. I'm not quite sure what that would be.
Thank you, Joe. Kevin?
Thank you. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I haven't been here in a while, as you guys know. Been popping up here and there once in a blue moon, but you know what? It's a topic that is not new. This is a topic of accountability and, you know, co-chairs and things that we've been trying to address over the last few years. And I think Gail and Michael touched on a good chunk of stuff as well, Adonis as well. And I think it's just a repetition from me, and a lot of you guys have probably heard it already, is, you know, we want to say it starts from the co-chairs, and in a sense it does, right? But we've created a terms of reference, we've created all these documents, we've done what's shaping culture and all that stuff. And you know what? I haven't seen anything that's kind of held that to a standard, right? I think what we need to understand as co-chairs is that this role as a co-chair supersedes your role anywhere else, right? Unfortunately, that's the case. This is what you took, and that's your job, right? Because anything that you do in the public's eye will say, hey, they're part of the SDP, and you know what? Why are they talking like that? Why are they acting like that? Why don't they follow their terms of reference? Why don't they follow all these documents that they're creating, right? And I think that's where the issue stands, and I don't think people are understanding that, right? It's like the law, right? If a judge says, you know what, I'm supposed to give you a minimum of 5 years, but you know what, let me give you 1 year, it's okay. Well, people start thinking, you know what, I'll get away with it, right? So we need to understand that everything that you guys do, there's always somebody watching and thinking, okay, is this really a true table that's going to hold everything accountable? Or is it just people who are looking for their own benefit, right? So for me, like I said, I've mentioned this before, and you know what, like, I'd like to see accountability held. I'd like to see, you know, the terms of reference followed. I'd like to see all our policies followed, right? But I leave that up to the co-chairs to decide, which, like I said, we've let them do for the last, I don't know how many years now. And yes, there are good co-chairs. Yes, there are mediocre co-chairs. Yes, there are co-chairs that are questionable. That's up to you guys to decide. But at the end of the day, it's all the co-chair's fault, because you guys need to speak out when there's something not being done correctly. So there's no point in aiming at somebody and saying, oh yeah, it's his fault, it's that person's fault, it's that person's fault. No, it's a collective. That's why we're at this point. We've talked about this consistently, and we still couldn't even stop it from happening. So I'd love to see, you know, everything be better, change and all that stuff, but we're at this point where the city's dictating everything, right? And we are looking to kind of figure out how we can support in that aspect, right? In terms of what Michael said, that he doesn't want to have co-chairs, I think that's we're too far down the line. And I think at this point, we've based everything off having co-chairs, and that's the point where we have to stick to. But I'd like to see a more solid, more accountable group of co-chairs that, are enforcing everything and working on behalf of the SDP and not just on behalf of their organization. So that's just my thoughts on it. And like I said, I've repeated this a number of times. And I'm just coming here today just to repeat it again, I guess, right? Just because I heard this is a topic again. So do I still have faith in this? Yes, I do, or else I wouldn't be coming, right? Do I still have faith that we can do better as a group? Yes, I do. We all have ideas. We're all passionate. Obviously, there are things that are happening between certain people, certain groups, and all that stuff. But you know what? We still got to understand that we got to work collectively, regardless of what issues are going on outside, to ensure that our community, is thriving and that we are able to have an impact where we're not dealing with issues of gun violence anymore, where, there's not as much poverty, and we're helping kids coming out of this poverty and have all access to these things that, other children have, right? And empowering everybody. So let's move forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. So all those points have been noted. For those, I see your hand up. And then if anyone else wants to speak, I will take a final speakers list for this item. And then we'll move on to the next agenda item. Ferdosa?
I just wanted the people who sit in this table, we need to clarify things. I want to basically say, what I want to basically say is, I'm gonna speak about myself, okay? And I'll take example of myself. If I go after the city, if I go after any organization, etc., and I don't align myself with any, or basically I don't go and represent any group, and I'm speaking as a resident, it shouldn't be affected the stakeholder or any group, because I am a resident before I was a co-chair. I don't like the idea of we limiting people or citing people because they are a co-chair. We live in this community and we passionate about our residents. I do believe to go in a way of respectful, or speak up for your resident or your community in a way of respecting others. And we all make mistakes, and I don't like people how they just pointing. I'm trying to be as much mindful as I can, but like not pointing people's finger, instead of like, people make mistakes. We all make mistakes. We all say silly stuff, and we should be mindful about, and not just pointing a finger at somebody or trying to silence somebody. So I want the table to separate me being as a resident and speaking up as a resident, and me representing a co-chair without consenting the member of the co-chair. I hope people understand. It kind of like, I wanted that to be clear and not connect everything together. So to silence somebody or to silence others. Anyone wants any further for me to explain it, please speak.
Thank you, Ferdosa. Kevin, I see your hand up. Would you like to respond?
Yeah, you know what? I I appreciate Fardoza bringing that up and saying those things as well. And I think I should have gave an example as well, just to kind of clarify and give context to the impact that's a role of a co-chair and a role of just being a resident, and the difference between that is as well, right? And I think the context I can kind of give you guys is, let's say, and I don't mean to out him and say his name in particular, I'm just using it as a general. Let's say Chris Moyes, he's the city councilor. And let's say, hey, you know what? Chris Moyes is on his 9 to 5. And then after 5 o'clock, he is no longer councilor. Now, Chris Moyes considers himself a resident. The media doesn't see it that way. Residents don't see it that way. At all points of Chris Moyes' life, he is a city councilor and he must represent the city and its residents at all times. So whatever he says, does from now on, from his term, at the beginning to the end, he is going to get, criticized. And that's what the co-chairs need to understand, that you guys are held to the same standard. There's no, you know what? I'm a leader by day and I am, just a regular resident by night. No, that's not how it works. If you want to be a superhero, you're a superhero through and through. That's it, plain and simple, right? So we need to understand this. And words affect, especially when you're a leader, because you're presenting yourself as a leader, and let's say kids, residents are looking up to you because, hey, you know what? This person is helping us, achieve this, get accessibility for that, get accessibility for something else, right? And then when you do something else that may oppose a different group or a different person, that is somebody that's actually, how can I say it, supporting you, that affects them dearly. So let's say, this person is supporting you. You say, hey, you know what, something to somebody else, and you say it against that person. Of course, they're going to feel a different way. And then those people who are with that person are going to be affected as well, right? It goes down the line, right? So that's why I said, you guys need to understand that your role as a co-chair of the SDP supersedes everything that you do. And you know what? That may be, and like I said, I'm not saying it's something that is anybody's fault right now, right? This is something that we're learning from now. So now we can say, hey, you know what? This is something that we need to implement into those terms of reference so that people understand the role, right? Hey, once you get into this role, you need to understand that you're a representative of the SDP and that your role here supersedes anything else, right? And that may be something that, will help people understand a bit more of the impact that they have, because I don't think people are understanding what the impact it is.
Thank you, Kevin. I see Gail, and I will say that unless Fardosa wants to respond to anything, because this was her point, I will say that we're not going to be taking any more speakers for this particular item. Gail?
Yeah, maybe simply I'm saying, and I understand absolutely where Kevin is coming from, and to whom much is given, much is expected, right? The city, the city councilor and the mayor, right, and the prime minister, pretty big role. So yes, you're never off the clock. Same as when you become a celebrity, right? Never off the clock, even if you'd like to be. And so these roles are not big like those, but they're big in terms of this community itself, and we have a different community. No celebrity, and don't want to be. Child, I'm trying to hide all my business. And so we communicate in many different ways, but when we take on that role position, even when we take it on, think back. This is about accountability at the end of the day, and so think back think back to when you took that role and you said, you know, I want to be here for my residents and all residents and bring people together. That's generally the kind of things we say. Well, how are we doing that, right? So if I as a resident and other groups of residents say, hey, you know, what you're doing is not bringing us together, do you say, oh, well, too bad, this is my personal belief, right? Or do we stop and think, okay, can we talk about that? How is that troubling you? It's kind of those kind of pieces. Can't like everyone, can't agree with every position. You know, but at the end of the day, it's about accountability because you took this specific role, right? This role of leadership. So that's something that personally everybody has to wrestle with and decide how they want to operate.
Thank you. And Firdousa, I'm going to let you respond to this, but I am not taking any more speakers for this particular item. So Firdousa, go ahead.
Yeah, I get it. I just think every single one of us who's sitting here are sitting for a certain purpose, whether you're here for the community, you're for yourself, etc. And everybody's passionate about something. So when I have been in this community for quite some time, and I know and I have seen what happened in a stakeholder, the amount of fights and the amount of celebration that happened in this community. I have seen it, and I just think it is. I get it, holding each other in accountability. I agree with that, but advocating for what you believe or you think if a certain group of people are being discriminated, or I'm not talking about this incident, Twitter incident happened. I'm talking about in general. We should be able to advocate what we think. What we believe that is important in the neighborhood. If there's a minority of people who's been oppressed, we should be able to speak up for them. And not because I'm a co-chair, now I have to watch what I do, or I can't share concern about the city. For example, if I use my own personal Twitter, that I think is trying to silence people. That's not what the resident in our community is stand for. The whole purpose that I came to sit in this community, I didn't came to sit in the community just to be silent. I came with a passion for advocating the youth, families who are struggling, and TCHC residents. I know my struggle as a TCHC resident, so I know and the struggle they face, and that's the reason why I'm sitting here. But if you're trying to only silence certain people because you don't like their agenda, it's not anymore about communities, about personal. And I rest my case.
Thank you, Firdousa. For the sake of time, I will end this over here. Perhaps we can think about how, if there's any specific ways that we want to address this, like Kevin suggested, actually following the shaping culture guidelines that came out, or in terms of reference. Perhaps that could be a discussion at a future meeting of how we apply that, who applies that, who can apply things like that, and how we follow, how we're going to train people on that. Kevin is right. This is not something that's new to this group. This is just brought back to our attention to address it. But we do have 2 other agenda items. I would like to add to what I was trying to say earlier, but then I had forgotten, was if we remember the ARAP study that was done, in their recommendations as well, I know they did a presentation, a lot of us were there, but I noticed that in their recommendations as well, they said they recognize that the SDP lacks accountability within the membership. And they also made mention about how there is lack of ownership with specific items. We could go revisit that. It's on the drive. I welcome anyone to go revisit that. We can talk about that as well, again, at a future meeting. I will jump into the next agenda item. So thank you everyone for that, for a fruitful discussion. I do have some key points noted down over here, and the notes are linked below, so you could just click on that and follow along as I take notes. So the April 25th meeting follow-up. Adonis, would you like to make this announcement before I move on to the next items, or are you okay with me just reading it?
Sorry, what announcement is that?
It's the Catch the Flavor May issue.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for the May issue of Catch the Flavor, we're gonna put out a special edition for the SDP. So most of it will be on the evaluation presentation that was made to the SDP Stakeholders Table and around the accomplishments of the each of the working groups. So that will be in May. It will be coming up.
Thank you. Okay, so for this agenda item, we had some items that we discussed, some items that were voted on at the April 25th meeting. And I wanted to see if we can determine the outcomes at today's meeting. So the first was motion to request release of funds, which was approved. And now I wanted to determine the next steps. Walid, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, Ismail, I think you're best placed as our coordinator to communicate or inform the city of the decision made by the community through the stakeholders table. So maybe what we could do is we could, at our next planning meeting, have a draft for review and approval by the planning committee based on what was approved at the stakeholders table. I think that's the most logical next step, and hopefully request Richard or another representative of the city to come and respond to the request from the community, so that we could be courteous enough to give them some time to develop a response and to work with us to ensure that the city approved SDP funds for 2024 are released to community groups and residents that are going to use those resources to support the priorities of the SDP for working groups and its committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Walid. And thank you, Sher Khan. I wasn't going to call you out, but I'm happy you volunteered. I was just going to email you afterwards to see if you can support me on that. Sher Khan, I'm sure she introduced herself numerous times. She's support from Dixon Hall, and she's a communication specialist. So even with the email that we sent to TCH for request of funds for the gift cards for the raffle, Sher Khan has helped me with that. And she in the chat has expressed that she's willing to assist with this as well. So thank you, Sher. And Walid, thank you for the next steps. I just wanted to be clear on that. So we said that we will draft a email to send to the city staff, and that email will then first be approved before it gets sent by the admin coordinator, me, to send out the email to the city staff. So thank you. Are there any questions, any comments that anyone would like to make with that proposal? I see Inez's hand, I see Gail's hand, and then Michael. So Michael, you're going to be third on the speakers list. So we have Inez, Gail, then you. Inez?
So in that proposal that was brought up, and I said it was a waste of time, I was against it, and I still stand by that. I never agreed that I was with it. So my thing still stands. I'm not for that. Thank you.
Clarify.
Gail, I have you next. Gail, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't agree either, but I didn't get the opportunity to speak at the meeting. So I maybe Mike really more for me a question. So we send this off, the city comes back and says, no, we're going to do the refresh, and then what's our next step? Are we thinking that far ahead, or are we looking to go down a fight with the city, or this is just posturing? Just trying to understand where you're going to go next, because the city has said clearly we're not releasing them until we finish the refresh, so getting all that data. We also want to do strategic planning, and I would hope that that is data you want for the strategic planning. Somebody's getting paid millions, probably thousands, to do this work. Why wouldn't I want to take that along with all the other content I can gather? So yeah, I'd like to know where next after this. Fun times.
Thank you, Gail. Adonis, oh, sorry, Michael, then Adonis, then Walid.
All right. Well, you know, if that's sort of like the process, I'm not going to object. If Walid sort of hands it over to Ismail, and then Ismail hands it over to someone based on professional qualifications. I mean, you can go ahead and do it that way, but it's just not the way to operate. To have people doing things based on their position. But I'm not going to object or anything at this point in time. I just wanted to point out that that's the kind of thing I'm trying to get away from as much as possible. As for the motion itself and all that, I think there could have been a different way of discussing it that might have come up with alternatives or something that reflected different points of view. So we also should be trying to actually go through some of the process during the meeting other than just having people say their opinions. We have to actually be able to modify the motion during a meeting, because that way you might get to a situation where you don't have people disagreeing after the meeting. So that could have been done better, and I don't want to fall into the habit of letting people do things based on positions and qualifications, but I won't object in this particular case.
I see the speakers list is growing. I would like to remind that we do have another item after this. We have the strat planning. And at the very least, I would just like to have a discussion about whether or not we can have a hybrid meeting for the strat plan next week. So I would like to hold the last 10 minutes of this meeting to just discuss that. So for the speakers list, we have Adonis, Walid, then Miguel. Adonis, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a moot point whether or not we're sending a request to the city. The stakeholders table, which is the decision-making body of the SDP, has already made that decision, whether you like it or not. So that we should not get into a discussion about whether we should or not. I think in terms of, to Gil's point, I think at the meeting, even city staff had no problems with us with releasing the funds. For them, it was when it would be released, whether that's happening after the refresh or during the refresh. It was always the city's opinion, up to the city's decision when these funds are released, and really, if you think about it, how they're released, because they have went with a jury decision. So I think if we just indicate that we would like the funds to be released as soon as possible, so that we could begin planning 2024 activities / 2025, and the impact that the delay of funds would be making on things like Sunday in the Park, making on some of the other important activities that the SDP carries out, and the various projects that are carried out. I think if we just make that case and leave it into their hands, that would be fine. So I would like to see a letter that doesn't sort of demand them to release the funds. But again, it was the decision. The decision was a request to release the funds, and if we put it as soon as possible, and we put the impact of the delay that will cause on the 2004, 2005 projects would be, to me, appropriate letter. And we don't have to get in touch get into a discussion whether or not the refresh takes place first or not. Let's just leave it at that and let's move on, folks, in my opinion.
Thank you, Adonis. Walid and then Miguel. Walid?
Adonis summed up what I had to say, so I'm not gonna say more. But I just want to remind everyone, as members of planning, that we need to respect our terms of reference and respect the residents that showed up to the meeting and showed support for this resolution or proposal that was approved through consensus after the one objection was withdrawn. So I think it's important for us to follow through with the direction we get from the residents of Regent Park. That's why we're here. So I'll leave it at that. But thank you, Adonis, for summing up what we should do to move forward. And I 100% agree with your suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, Walid. Miguel and then Gail. Miguel?
Same. I agree with Adonis. We should write a letter emphasizing the need for funding. In view that some of our activities that need funding is standing in the park. That is the most important event coming on the schedule. Are we, for clarification, are we putting forward any motion to discuss the role and responsibilities of the the co-chairs of the SDP? Are we?
Your question, could you repeat your question again?
I don't know. I heard Michael saying that there was a motion to address the behavior or the character or the co-chairs of the SDP. Is that correct?
So that discussion is over. We were just talking about co-chairs being held to a certain standard and the accountability of co-chairs. We had the discussion already in this call, and we've moved on since.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. I have Gil. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if my audio is not coming through, because clearly I said, first time I spoke, there were 2 objections. I also said there was no accessibility, and so those people who were online could not participate. So these things always cause problems, right? So I clearly said 2 people, and we come back again after all of that discussion and we say, oh, only 1 person. And we're referencing the terms of reference. There were 2 people. For the record, for the notes, for the minutes, there were 2 people. And the 1 person or persons in the chat could not be a part of the discussion. So a decision was made without all residents being able to participate. That did happen. If it didn't happen, then Ismail, please indicate that that did not happen. But that happened. I'm not making up anything. It's recorded. The notes are there. Comments are in the chat from that recording. So yes, a decision was made without all residents who wanted to participate participating. It was not just 1 person. So if you're looking at the terms of reference, then please look with that lens as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Gil. Adonis, go ahead.
Yeah, so to Gail's point, I mean, if you feel that's really necessary, obviously there was a procedure problem and that we weren't aware of. And certainly we can put that in if you feel that's necessary to have that put in the minutes to let people know that there was an objection, but otherwise it was unanimously accepted by the stakeholders table that that this request it should be proceeded with. But we could add that if we feel it's necessary to put
I believe it's absolutely necessary because again, you have residents here who have said one person did. You're putting on record one person did when the facts are two people did. It's not me saying it, it's the record. The record is there. Just go back and listen to it. Go back and look at the chat. So the record is there. That's all I'm asking for. It's not an if. The record is there. Please apply the record. And I'm speaking because someone else is saying that the record is not, the record is that one person objected. That is not the record. So how do you want me as a resident to feel, right? How do you want me as a resident to feel confident that my voice is heard? Or does it not matter that my voice is heard, right? Is it only certain voices? Should be all voices, right? So yes, there was a technical issue. We get that. But then let's correct the record. Two people objected. You don't have to like them. You don't have to like the objection, but that's the record.
But Gil, I'm asking this so that one is the minutes, obviously, where that's recorded, but the other one, do you feel that has to go into the letter itself? That's what I'm asking for. Do you think that's
no, I don't think it needs to go into the letter. It needs to go on the record. I don't know how it helps the letter. It just needs to go on record.
The record, the minutes. Obviously,
yes, that's what I'm referencing. That's what I'm referencing. But when
Okay.
when we go through 3 hours of a meeting and that is said, and then somebody comes back and says something completely different, yeah, we start to get agitated and frustrated. That am I not being heard? Why is that being changed? Is there not an understanding? Am I speaking in a way that people can't understand? All of those things, it impacts.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. So the clarification is that the minutes, that is recorded in the minutes. Those objections were recorded in the minutes. But otherwise, the letter goes through as a decision by the stakeholders table. Thank you.
Thank you, Adonis. Next, I have Miguel and then Walid. I ask that both of you keep it short because we do need to move on to the next item to see if we can have a hybrid meeting. But Miguel, go ahead.
Yes, Ismail. Just to say a few things. I did recall saying that I was abstaining myself from the voting process. Is that also part on the is on the record?
Yes.
Letter? Okay, thank you. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Walid?
Yeah, I'll keep it very quick. So one person opposed it in person, one person opposed it online, and one person abstained in person. That's my understanding now. So thanks for those who are online, just to correct that. I did not know what the opinions were online. So thanks for that clarity. And I believe we have a way forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So now that, okay, so we only have 10 minutes left. I will say that we do have to come to a decision for this though. I guess we've already decided at the stakeholders table meeting that we were going to pass, but I'm not sure if that's being contested right now.
No.
No? Okay, so we're good to go. For the next item then, since we only have 10 minutes, I'll start with the main thing. So next week we have our first strategic planning meeting, and this is the evening meeting at 5 p.m. So this will be on May 9th, and the topic is direction and vision. The question now is if we can host this as a hybrid meeting, an in-person meeting, or if we're just going to do this virtually. So I'll give members a chance to speak on that. Michael, after you, Michael, go ahead, and then I have Sarah Jane.
Okay. So we also have to prepare for the meeting. So I'm going to have some, of the existing documents available. And the other thing is the revised version of the topic for that meeting included scope, because there were some people still asking for that part to be discussed. So just scope, vision, and direction. I think that be best if we decided it was hybrid, but even if not, I would still go over there and phone in. So even if for whatever reason it's not officially hybrid, some of the calls will be coming from there anyways. So, but I would really like it to be hybrid. I also like to, well, maybe this is more relevant for the future meetings. I don't know how this first one is going to go, but I'd like to get some people thinking about how we actually run the meeting. The first one I think is pretty general and may not require advanced planning. But if anybody feels they would like to have a pre-meeting on that, I would be willing to join that. But as far as the meeting itself is, if we haven't booked a room yet, I don't think that's a problem. There's 3 open spaces in that building. So we'll be able to accommodate the number of people we get. If you can book a room, that's fine, but I don't think it affects anything one way or the other. I would just like to request that we do ask people to come in person, but make sure it's also hybrid.
Thank you, Michael. Sarah Jane?
Okay, well, I have a problem. I can't, we don't have the technology using an owl, and you said that we can't afford it. And hybrid meetings are difficult for me because I don't see who's speaking, and people walk back and forth, and it comes out of the air. I have no idea who's speaking when they talk, because unless you can hold the microphone up, if somebody's in charge of holding the microphone up and focusing the camera on the speaker, I can't attend a personal meeting. And I also have problems with attending in large crowds. I went, that's why childminding is all right with me, except the large cloud appeared when it shouldn't have. Like there must have been about 50 people in that chaos of the children streaming in and out. But I wear a mask, so I can participate online if somebody wants to hold a microphone to the speaker, and I want a commitment to that.
Okay. Adonis, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I disagree. I think we should just do it as a Zoom meeting. It's and have that organized as a Zoom meeting to begin, at least to begin with. I'm not clear in terms of where this is going, but to bring people to a physical place without really the need to do so, because of childcare issues, because of trying to do both things at the same time, I think it just makes it more complicated and harder. So I would prefer a Zoom meeting unless we identify that there's a reason for a in-person activity to happen. And yes, I think that there needs to be a strategic planning committee. I thought we formed one, but I'm not clear, that meets to plan, to help with Michael planning these meetings. And I would want to be on that as well. Thanks.
Can you suggest a time?
I suggest maybe after the planning, agenda planning meeting.
First Tuesday. I don't know if there's any working groups that day.
Check the calendar right now. We have next week. No, there's nothing. So if the strategic planning committee would like to meet next week after agenda planning, they can.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, so I'll put that down in the notes then for next week. That will be the first strategic planning committee meeting.
And that's going to be during agenda planning?
This will be right after agenda planning.
Right after
agenda planning ends at 4:30. and then it will take on right after. So after agenda strategic planning meeting will commence at 4:30. Okay, I would like, so can we identify the members of the strategic planning committee so that it's clear who will be attending? Unless you just want to kind of see who joins the meeting since it will be over Zoom. Adonis,
We could remind people. I mean, we already had a committee, so it's not the first meeting, but it won't necessarily be the same people this time.
So, Michael, what are you proposing?
I'm proposing that you put out a 4:30 meeting time and make the 354 number available. I'm assuming the people who had been to the meetings last year know who they are.
So we have other hands up as well, Michael. We have Waleed and then Gail. Sorry, we have Adonis. Adonis, is that an old hand though?
And sorry.
Yep, no worries. Waleed, then Gail.
Yeah, I think for strategic planning, for the committee, I know Dini has shown interest. So we should invite Dini for sure. I would like for the invitation to also go to the co-chairs of all the working groups, and anyone who's the chair of a committee, in addition to planning committee. So maybe that could help ensure that the voices of the working groups when it comes to strategic planning are considered while we figure out the courses of plan of action, or the sort of engagement that we need to do within the working groups if needed. So that's my recommendation: is we send an invitation, and if folks want to show up, they will. If not, they're too busy. Then that's something that we can address maybe one-on-one with those that can't attend. I just want to make sure safety is also part of that conversation, because there's a lot of work that's been done at that table alongside other tables as well. But it's important for us to engage the co-chairs from safety.
Thank you. Michael, we have Gail, and then we'll have you. Gail, go ahead.
Yeah, so right, we're back to co-chairs, right? We're saying, hey, send the co-chairs, right? You're sending them because they're leaders. So maybe as well, it's maybe just members of the working group, right? Because we seem to be at odds now with the word co-chair. But then, is that the work you are asking the co-chair to do, to be part of the strategic planning? Or would you like members of the community who may be interested, who may have a skill and a competency in that type of work, to be a part of? Because that would be helpful, certainly, if you have a skill or competency as well in that area. It is a specialty area. And yes, I'd love to see Dini reconnected back.
Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the meetings are open. It's more a question of giving people a clear understanding of the purpose. So the purpose of the May 9th is to discuss the content of the strategic plan. The purpose of the May 7th is to both plan the May 9th meeting and any other planning processes regarding to how the strategic plan gets conducted. So I think that once you clarify it that way, you're not going to get like massive numbers of people showing up on Tuesday, and they'll understand that the better one to go to is Thursday, but they can go to both if they want to. But it's more a matter of putting out with each meeting why that particular meeting is relevant, and so people can understand what they we'll decide to go to. Yeah, so I don't know if we can just leave the rest of it to Tuesday. I have some ideas of who could facilitate and other ideas, but I guess we'll discuss that on Tuesday.
Thank you, Michael. So we are out of time. I do see 2 more hands up, so I will let you speak. I would like to add that, so I don't know who the former members of the Strat Planning Committee were. I wasn't here then. I will send this announcement out to the Planning Committee that we have a Strat Planning prep meeting at 4:30 on May 7th, and that we have a strategic planning scope, direction, and vision meeting on May 9th at 5 p.m. So I'll send those announcements out, and
A Zoom meeting?
this will be a Zoom meeting, yes.
Now,
Yeah.
I have no problem if you feel it should be preferentially Zoom, but just in case, you know, some people do show up, can at least one person show up with something that can communicate?
No.
Just so that if anybody is there, they will be able to, and it won't have any difficulty seeing them, because if there's like 3 people there, you know, you'll know who's talking. I mean, you could get 3 people at one point in any connection to Zoom anyways. I mean, nothing to stop 3 people from calling in from one location. So, but I'd prefer just to know that we're at least prepared in case of that.
Thank you, Michael, for making that request. Adonis has his hand up. Adonis?
Yeah, a few things. So Michael, I know that you've been thinking about this, but this is a proposed plan. I think that we should go on Tuesday with an open idea of how we're gonna frame this and have that discussion. So that's one thing. So I disagree, Ismail, with you sending out and saying this meeting will be about the scope or this will be. I just think that you should send it out. We're starting strategic planning on May 9th. The details will follow. Something to that addition. That's my proposal. And then on Tuesday, we discuss exactly what we're going to do on those dates. The other thing is, Michael, you're being very optimistic around what rooms are available. There have been a number of times when I have been trying to get a room just to have a Zoom meeting, a quiet room. It's not it is crazy in the center these days in terms of room. It's not like it used to be. Those rooms are booked all the time. And at this late stage, that's not going to happen. So to try to find a quiet room is pretty much going to be, it's hard to do. I'm not saying impossible, but it's going to be pretty hard to do. So I wouldn't count on it.
I wasn't expecting to get a room.
What?
How could you, with all people passing through, how do you expect to hear?
I'm not expecting more than 3 or 4 people to show up. I just want to be prepared in case they do.
Yeah, but
we're already not going to be telling people to show up.
There'd be activity all over the place. There's always activity.
I do meetings there twice a week, just in the open area. I'm just saying, like, just to be prepared in case there's 3 or 4 people.
No.
Well, I'm not doing that, so you could figure out who. Like, I guess we could talk about that on Tuesday and see if we could send a message out to anybody to provide that technology. Anyways, yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'll send out an announcement to the planning committee that a strat planning prep meeting is happening on May 7th, because again, I don't know who the previous strat planning members were, to send it out directly. And since it is a public meeting, we'll send that out to all the planning committee members. And then the meeting of that, or the outcome of that meeting, will determine what happens on Thursday for May 9th. I will say that I will not be there to note take for the May 2nd meeting. So I'll be there for the agenda planning meeting as usual, but I will not be there for the strat planning prep meeting. And just letting you know. And I'll see everyone next week then. That ends the meeting over here unless there's any final thoughts or questions.
I'm committed to have a microphone to every speaker if there's somebody speaking from a hybrid.
Noted, Sarah Jane. Thank you. Adonis, is that an old hand?
Sorry, old hand, yeah.
Yep. Okay, folks, I guess we can end the meeting over here. We have a few items that have to get carried over for next week, such as the input gathered, the activity from the April 25th meeting. I do have everything on a spreadsheet, which is linked in the minutes, so you could view that. And then the expenses will go over, and we'll go over, I guess, once the strat planning committee meets on the 7th, we'll see how far they get into the meeting. They could probably determine what the rest of the meetings will look like. And that can be decided then and shared with this group afterwards. Thank you everyone for joining.
Okay, bye, Ishmael. Thanks for facilitating.
Thank you for joining. Thanks.
Good job, Ishmael.
Thank you, Sarah Jane.
Awesome work, guys. Thank you.
Awesome work, Miguel. Thank you for joining. Take care, everyone. I'm gonna end the meeting here.
All right.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also follow us on social media, and for more information, check out our website.